Welcome to the Ambitious Introvert podcast, created especially for introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive entrepreneurs to help you build, grow, and scale a successful, sustainable business. I'm your host, Emma-Louise Parks, business and mindset coach for ambitious introverts. After 17 years working as an air traffic controller, the ultimate fast-paced, high-stimulus, extrovert-friendly role, my mission now is to show introverts that they too can create big results and success because of who they are, not in spite of it. I focus on introvert-friendly business and marketing strategy to help you switch overwhelm for clarity, confidence, and clients. Hello, welcome to The Ambitious Introvert with me, Emma-Louise. And this week's guest is so much fun. Tia is someone that has been in the Facebook group for many, many years. My friend Elise recommended my podcast to Tia after she'd been a guest on it. She knew that she was highly sensitive and introverted and would love everything being said. And the very interesting thing about Tia is that she definitely comes across as more feisty, more extroverted, especially in her written content. But she really identifies at heart as such an introvert and highly sensitive. So the backstory to how this happened, obviously she's been posted in my Facebook group. I've seen her in other communities for a long time now. And I actually posted in a different Facebook group looking for guests for the show. And she responded and she was like, I've been waiting for this. I've been manifesting this literally. And I'm going to do it. And I'm so scared, but I'm going to fill out the application. So I thought that was just a really great way to start this, to say, this is someone that listens to the show and is a huge fan and could have told herself all kinds of stories about why she shouldn't apply to be a guest, but instead was completely up for feeling the discomfort and doing it anyway. So that kind of sets the tone for the conversation that we have. Tia is super sassy, but super consistent. And that is something that I have noticed in her because I see her online all the time, see her posts going out. And she actually shares about her content creation and her system for sharing, which is super introvert friendly. So this episode is really, indulge me because I'm getting to meet someone that's very active in my community. We're getting to chat face to face for the first time. So I hope you enjoyed that. But also just to see that someone who is definitely introverted and sensitive, even though they may come across as the opposite, they still have the same mindset challenges. They still have the same self-talk. The same things still come up, and why it's still necessary for us to notice that and push through those barriers so that we can create the opportunities that we want to manifest and continue on our own growth journey. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy listening to me and the lovely sassy Tia and our first ever face-to-face conversation. So Tia, how does it feel to now be a guest on your favorite podcast?
It feels so incredible and exciting and terrifying, all of the things. And I'll be honest, from the first time that I listened to your podcast, I was like, I'm going to be on that.
Oh, I love it. So, manifested.
Yeah, it does. It feels like something that I have decided was going to happen. I listen to you all the time. We walk together. We run together. We have so many great memories together. And I knew that we were going to talk about it.
I go on so many walks with people. I think you're the only person that's taken me on a run. And for anyone listening, it's Tia doing the running, not me, because I do not run. But I do love that I get taken outdoors because I like the fresh air. I'm going to go a slightly different angle now because you just said something really interesting that I think it's worth touching on. So you decided from day one, you're like, I want to be on that podcast. And, we've communicated a lot on Facebook. We've obviously got a lot in common. You feel very seen when you listen to the show. How did you feel when you found my post in the podcast group asking for guests?
Oh, I was thrilled, beyond thrilled. And I read, I would like to just make a little note. I read what you asked of people to do, and I didn't think that I was more special than all of the other people who you were asking them to do that. So I followed the directions to a T, And then I got to be on your podcast, and I was just, yeah, I felt like a little girl on Christmas. And I've also just decided that I'm going to be releasing my own podcast as well. I fully committed to it. I haven't set a launch date yet, but I have hired a podcast manager. So it just felt so divinely timed. Like, oh, I'm going to be on Emma-Louise's podcast just in time to talk about I'm having a podcast. It was just really brilliant.
And and I think it's important because these things are stretchy. And I think people look and they go like, oh, so-and-so, like she's on podcasts and she's really articulate and, she's really sassy, which we'll get into in a bit. But, you're saying now you're like, I did a little meditation before we started. And even the point I'm trying to make is we have to push our edges and push our comfort zone to do these things that we want to do, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel like right now my heart is pounding. I'm terrified. I'm nervous as all get out. And I knew that this is how it was going to feel. And when I put my hand up, I knew that it was going to be scary. But the thing for me is do it scared, because you're going to be scared anyway. So why don't you just do the thing that you want that's going to bring you the result that helps you achieve the next level version of you, whatever that means to you. And so for me, it was, Emma-Louise wants a podcast guest. I'm going to be a podcast guest for her. And, I didn't even hesitate. I didn't even think, oh my gosh, she's too cool for me. I just was like, no, I'm going to just do the thing and then see what happens. And you responded to me personally, not your team. And you were so excited. And it was just beautiful. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I was so excited. And you followed the procedure and it was a great pitch. And ultimately, and I think this is the thing with podcasts, like, it goes both ways. Like I've pitched to podcasts that I'm like, whoa, they're really established. Like that person's got a really big audience. But I've always approached it with, but I can give value. I can have a conversation that gives value to them. It's not about the fact that they earn more than me or they've got a bigger audience or any of that. It's really like, hey, they have a show where they interview people that they want to bring in like a different perspective to their audience. And I can do that. And I would say like, 99 times out of 100, I get a yes. But if I let the mental chatter get there, I probably wouldn't apply because I'd be like, oh, well, they might not, or, this. And the same with guests. Sometimes I approach people to come on as guests and people are like, wow, how did you get that person? I'm like, I invited them. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, if we overthought it and, made it mean something, then we would never do anything. So I am totally with you. Like, do it scared is the way that you're going to get the results. And there's the proof. You're here.
I am here and I'm so thrilled to be here. So thank you for having me.
Well, obviously with this new format, I introduced the guest in my own little segment at the start, but you had such a beautiful tagline that just rolled off your tongue that I'm going to give you the opportunity to do it again because I just loved how it sounded. So Tia, please tell my audience who you are and what you do.
I am your sassy black friend, Tia G. Not always the friend you want, but definitely the one you need to live with more purpose, passion, and intention to create the life of your dreams.
Are you going to open your own podcast with that? Please open your podcast with that. It's so good.
I am going to open my podcast with that.
So I would love to dive into a little bit about your sassy tag, because I would agree you are definitely sassy. I think sassy is a great word, but you are also very openly introverted and sensitive.
Yes, I am. I am all of the things. I like to say sometimes too that I'm an introvert hiding in an extroverted personality because I am very social in those situations and I seem very open and welcoming and I can talk to anyone. But then after that's over, I need to go home and be alone for like 3 days to recover from all of that. So I am sassy and I say things frankly and I don't really pull punches, but I'm also really caring and loving and I actually care about people and I'm telling them things that are difficult to hear because when they figure those things out, they can make moves in their lives that will be really helpful to them, you know? And so I like to just be really upfront about who you're going to get and what you're going to get when you sign up with me. So no one's surprised when I'm like, girl, what do you mean? That is some bullshit.
But I think there's something about, especially if you're an empath and highly sensitive, that we can deliver that kind of tough love, I'm going to say, but it is in a loving way. So some of my clients will say to me, oh, that was brutal, or that was savage. But they're also like, it's what I needed. And I know that you mean it from a good place. It's not like, oh, she's having a go at me. It is from a place of like, I'm telling you this because I love you and you need to hear it so that you can grow.
Right. And that's the thing. Most of the people who sign up with us have made a conscious decision that they want to grow. And so they're ready to hear those difficult things. But if you're not, then it's probably not going to work, and we're not going to be a good fit, you know, because growth is uncomfortable. Confronting yourself and the things that are going on in your brain that just run on loop, and then making a conscious decision to change them and become aware of them, that takes a certain level of grit, you know, to embark on. And if you don't have that level of grit, then you're not going to get to that level of awareness to be able to, you know, make changes and in a way that's going to be meaningful for you. And people often, I've heard people talk about like, living your best life is somehow insinuating that you're not living your best life in the moment. But what I really talk about is accepting where you are right now, loving who you are in this moment, and then just making a really conscious decision about where you're going next, who that person is, what that person looks like, how they think and how they act, and then making decisions in line with the choice that you've made. It is not to put down the person you are currently. It is to empower the person you are currently to become who you want to be.
I think that's so important because so many people look at it as I need fixing, like there's something wrong with me and I need to work with a coach or a therapist or whatever to get fixed. And you are, like we all are, just, you know, whole as we are, but we get to decide if we want to step out of that mold and push it a little bit further. Like you say, take it to the next level, whatever language that you want to use, which is obviously going to incur some discomfort. I have been coached in one capacity or another. Oh gosh. I mean, I was coached almost daily for 3 years when I was training to be a controller, literally someone going, what have you done that for? What's this? What can you do here? How could you do that better? Like it was just constant. And I've had coaches in my business constantly since early 2019. And even this week on a coaching call, my coach was like, unfold your arms. I know you feel confronted. I know you feel really seen. And I was like, yeah. It's like so uncomfortable because it's just another layer of things that we're working on. But I kind of embrace that now because I'm like, it must be working. If I feel this much discomfort, it must be working.
Yes. And you get to that point where you start to recognize your resistance and how it appears in your body and what it's trying to tell you. And it doesn't necessarily get easier to move through the resistance. It still feels really prickly, but just being aware, oh, this is a sign. I'm moving towards something I want. I am definitely making those moves. It feels uncomfortable. I don't like. And then you push through, you do it scared, you do it uncomfortable, you move through the resistance, and then you come to the other side and you're like, oh, yay. And then repeat.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah. Is there anything that, I mean, you are incredibly consistent in your marketing because you are very active in my Facebook group and a number of other groups. And so, you know, and I think that's something that's really important because it helps to build trust because people see you on a consistent basis. But is there anything that you do now that's very just normal, standard day to day in your business, but that felt really difficult at the start or felt really hard to do?
Well, to be fair, at the start, everything feels
Everything. Okay, good.
But what I did for myself really well that set me up is I created a really solid bank of content. And that for me was a little bit easier because I'm a writer. That is my thing. I'm a copywriter. I write for other people. I write for myself. And the thing I like to do the most is write for myself. And that's how I kind of got into it. I was like, what can I do? How can I use writing for me? And as I started building my first business, I started really coaching a lot of people through that and realized, wait a minute, this is another skill that I have here. I'm really great at this coaching. Like the first 2 or 3 women that I worked on their websites for got a raise immediately after having one meeting with me because I told them to raise their prices. I told them how to do it and why they should do it. And then they went out and did it. One person doubled her income in the next month. And I realized I was really on something here. So I could use my writing, I could use my story to further my business. And I started to really prefer that. So the first thing I kind of did was decide I was going to post 3 times a week in my own group, just quietly. And I did that for about 6 months. And then I've got this kind of steady bank of content. And then I hired a VA. Well, she's way more than a VA. I say I hired a VA and then I got a boss.
I think sometimes that's what we need, someone to tell us what to do in our business.
Exactly. And so she's incredible. So I hired her, and what she started to do is organize my content for me and started posting it 5 days a week in 5 different groups in just this most beautiful way. So that became easy because I set it up to be easy, you know? And so now I probably create content weekly. And I did a 30-day challenge in December where I was, posting every single day. And the more that you write, the easier it gets. And you think when you first start, you're going to run out of ideas or, you're going to say everything and then it's going to be over. But really and truly, more and more and more, it just keeps coming to you. And then on top of that, what you've already used in the past, you can certainly use again because not everybody saw it the first time that you wrote it or that you posted it. So you can, reuse it. So I've just kind of got that system going now in such a way that it runs itself. I'm off for a week and my assistant's running the whole show.
So 2 things I would love to take from that. The first being, for anyone newer in business, like you said, you just posted in your own group at first for the first 6 months and you got comfortable with that. I think it's easy to look at where people are and go, oh, they're posting like 5 times a week in 5 groups. I can't do that. I don't have the energy. I don't have the confidence. But knowing that that's not where we all started on day one, we all, built it up. And the second thing I'd love to dive into is that 30-day content challenge, because it was the Expose Your Truth challenge by Juliana Garcia. And I worked with Juliana last year. I was in her mastermind for 3 months. And that challenge is pretty brutal. I always call it expose yourself by mistake, but it's expose your truth. But Juliana talks about elegant vulnerability. So she talks about sharing the parts of ourselves that maybe are a bit darker or that, don't look so glossy online, but doing it in a way that highlights it and teaches as a lesson for other people. And so I started doing that challenge and completely fell off the bandwagon by about day 3, I think, because I had a million other things going on. But you did that challenge.
I did. And you completely inspired me to do it.
With my one of my 3 days.
Yeah. You posted it and I thought, oh my gosh, if Emma-Louise is doing this, I had seen it months prior. It was in my email inbox and I just kind of pushed it aside because I think I expose myself. I'm very open and I share a lot. And so I thought, this is going to be a breeze. Lies were told to myself.
How did it go? How was it?
It was terrifying. It was not a breeze at all. I did get a good bank of content going before December. So I probably had about half of the posts written before I started posting them. So I knew that it was that difficult. But I thought it would be a fun exercise as a writer to kind of challenge myself outside of what I am used to, and challenge myself I did. It really forced me to confront things that I didn't know necessarily that I was ready to confront or share with the world. So a lot of times I really I really sent it off to Emma to post. And I was just like, it's a good thing that she's posting it, because there's no sending it back now. It's there. Yeah. She knows it's there. She's going to post it. But I would have this like moment of, oh, what are people going to think? What are people going to say when they know that I had this struggle and that I had to deal with this thing, and this was hard for me, or this was scary for me? But the overwhelming response that I got was positive and loving and supportive and caring, and people really, really enjoyed reading along every day. So it turned out really, really well. And actually, by the end of it, I made a really, really cool connection with somebody Canadian famous. And so that, and they were like, oh, I was reading your posts and I thought they were so great. They were making me cry. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, you're a famous person and you're telling me that I had that impact on you. And, so it was really nice. And it was really nice that I pushed myself to receive that, and then to receive that, I think, is another thing. And to be able to say, oh, wow, thank you, without being like, oh, this wasn't, and this, because a lot of times when we receive compliments, we want to deflect them. We want to minimize them or diminish them. And I really firmly am against that. So I have to really be conscious to say, wow, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate that I had that impact on you and that you shared it with me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think there's something quite, we're talking about, confronting feelings, like being coached and things. But to me, there's something very confronting about writing something down. Like, I'll talk about anything here on the podcast. I'm really open, and I'll talk about what I've struggled with or all of that. But when it comes to writing the newsletter or writing those posts, even if it's the same thing, which is why journaling is so great, right? Because we have to break through our own resistance to physically commit it to paper. It just feels different.
I know my coach, and I am a journaler. I journal. I've always been a journaler, but my coach will be like, well, this thing that's bothering you that you keep talking about, have you journaled that, Tia? And I'm like, rude.
How dare you ask me that?
How dare you coach me in this manner by asking me to write down things that are bothering me? That's what? Stop it. But, when you do those things and you confront those things and you let them fall out of your hand and absorb them through your eye, then it hits a little bit differently, and it allows you to process the thing that is just bopping around in your brain in a loop.
Totally. And I think it's such a valuable thing. And even I have resistance to it to this day. And I notice it and I'm like, oh, I'll do anything other than journal. I mean, I always do it. I always comes back around to it. But, I definitely don't jump up out of bed and be like, let me empty my head onto a page. I see the value of it. I recommend it to all my clients. But, that is just to say that it still feels hard because it's very confronting.
Mm-hmm. It is. And when you have to confront yourself, that is hard. And with me too, I actually process and think better through writing than through talking, which is why I think it's taken me so long to get to this point where I want to do a podcast, because I'm so much more comfortable writing than speaking. And so things come out of my hand that I don't even know I was thinking, and then I got to deal with that too.
Totally.
Right?
It's just so interesting how we're all different. And this is, my clients that go through the Ambitious Introvert Academy, when we're literally setting up their business from scratch, it's like, it's not about opening loads of social media accounts and being everywhere. Like, marketing isn't like that. But how do you best express yourself? Do you express yourself well through writing? Do you express yourself better through speaking? And then we choose a content strategy based on that, because just like, you go with what you're good at, like, use what you're born with. And if you write well, then absolutely it makes sense to build the foundation of your business by writing, and then you layer the podcast on top of it.
Right. And, it seems like with a 6-month bank of content, I probably have things I could talk about.
I would think so.
But funny enough, though, I committed to starting my podcast, and I hired my podcast manager, and my beautiful, amazing, lovely assistant has actually taken my content and then organized it into podcast topics, and then has my content going by week with the content that I'm going to talk about on the podcast that she has told me.
And everyone now wants to know who Tia's assistant is so that they can try and hire her.
I've actually, and this is the worst part. I've had actually DMs, and people are asking me if my assistant is taking on more clients, and she isn't. She really is my best friend who started doing this just for me, because she's like, you need help. You need this done. Let me help you. And she is flourishing in that role where she's blowing my mind. And I would love to share her, but she doesn't want to do this. She wants to do this for me and then hire someone to replace her for both of us as she builds her business. And I'm kind of coaching her to help her do that as well. So it's just this beautiful symbiotic relationship, and we are both so lucky in it. And I wish I could share her with everyone.
Well, it's like the most important thing, I think, for anyone to take from this conversation that is newer to business, or, just looking to start, and, maybe they are sassy as well as introverted and sensitive, but is that you've got really great foundations. And that's something that I talk about. And it's not the sexiest thing to talk about in the online space, because people want to talk about big revenue and like all of that. But actually having those foundations is where you can add things on. It's where you can easily grow. It's where you can create this great team dynamic. Like you say, you can have these great procedures and all of this. And, it might not sound very exciting, but I think it's very exciting.
I think consistency is so sexy.
Like a whole other podcast.
Just being consistent, starting somewhere, just starting somewhere and making a commitment to yourself, and then keeping that commitment. That was the first step for me. 3 times a week, here you go. And 3 times a week might be a lot for somebody who's not a writer. So start where you're comfortable. When I, for example, I'm a triathlete, so I swim, bike, and run, but I was out of that for years. And when I first started building my business and myself, it started with me making a decision to walk for 30 minutes 3 times a week, But I tell people, even if you do 5 minutes 3 times a week, start where you are and build from there, because that's all you can do. If you're not starting, you're not moving,
I would say it's like a feedback loop of like the mindset and the action, and you'll have the confidence to take action, which might be 2 posts a week. But then the more you do 2 posts a week, you'll gain confidence, and then you'll have the confidence to do more or post those posts somewhere else. But it's not like it's not one or the other. It's always the action of doing the action then gives you more confidence to take more action as such.
Yeah. And thing too, don't wait for motivation. That bitch is unreliable and they may not show up. So, do the thing. And then the more that you do it, the more that you want to do it, the more that you get positive feedback on the actions you're taking, then the easier it is to take those actions. But you're not going to get any feedback if you're just sitting around thinking about it, or thinking about how hard it is, or thinking about how you can't, or thinking about how this person over there is making it look easy. And let me assure you, for every person out there who is making it look easy, they started off where you are, thinking it was too hard and then deciding to do it anyway.
I am going to wrap up there because I think that was the absolutely perfect close to this conversation and very permission given. So, Tia, I'm very happy that you jumped on my post and decided to apply to the podcast. I'm going to pop all of your links in the show notes so everyone can come and find all of the places to connect with you. But, of course, before you go, you know the drill. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, although you don't know one of them because this is the new format. And it's not out yet. So we'll do the easy one first. What book would you recommend to my audience of ambitious introverts looking to start or grow their online business?
Okay. So this was really difficult for me because I struggle with reading a little bit. Since I was 21 and I had brain surgery, I used to be an avid reader like you. And then that kind of flipped after brain surgery. Something in my brain doesn't retain words in the same way anymore. So I have a recommendation because it is the first book that I devoured in a week and I couldn't put it down. But the thing is, this recommendation comes with a really giant disclaimer. Do not do anything this guy recommends. But it was a really great starting point for me because I was in a lot of groups with a lot of kind of bro marketers and a lot of that kind of energy, that hustle culture. So I read this book. It was called Can't Stop Me by David Goggins. And it was really popular at the time. It's still popular. And this man talks about all of these amazing feats that he completes. He's a Navy SEAL and he does all kinds of shenanigans and then kind of gives you tips to motivate you to kind of do more, that you're capable of more than you think you are. And so to that end, I'm yes to the book, but the man completed an entire Ironman with no training and as a full out triathlete. I think that's stupid. I came to the end of the book and I had questions for his wife and children that were only mentioned maybe 3 times. And I thought, wow, what do they think about all of this? I wonder if you could use therapy and a hug. So I think it's great. It was great and interesting and motivating, but also a little bit what not to do, what not to sacrifice for business, what not to sacrifice while you're building and growing. So there was that one. And for anybody who wants something actually helpful and they need to work on their money mindset, Rich as Fuck by Amanda Frances.
I love that book. I love that book, and I didn't think I would. No offense to Amanda Frances. I'm sure she's not listening.
No, same.
But didn't think she would be my vibe at all. And that is a fantastic book. And the first book that you recommended, I think that, as sensitive introverts, we do read between the lines. Like you say, you go, this guy's only mentioned his family twice. A lot of people wouldn't pick up on that. And that is the great thing about, reading or consuming content, that we do tend to get the undercurrents of it as well.
Yeah. And, with anything, take what applies to you and then leave the rest, And so I have to give that book the shout out that it's due, in terms of it got me into reading in a way that I hadn't in years. But if you're looking for something to really empower you to take control of your money mindset, then let's go with Amanda Francis and start with there, because she was the person who opened my eyes to changing the way that I look at money and how money works in the world, in order to actually go from being a person who thought having a job was security to losing that. And, I had a career for about as long as you, like I was there for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I was going to retire there and that was going to be it for me. And then realizing that that wasn't it, and having to come to a new understanding that I am security and that money comes from me and I create it, that I had no idea. The concept hadn't even been introduced to me until that point. So that book really set me off on this journey to this place where I am now, really empowered over money and making it in a way that is meaningful to me.
Beautiful. And I'll link both of those in the show notes. And the final question, the new question for Tim. Of all of the mindset shifts or new beliefs or reframes that you've had to adopt to get to where you are in business, what is the biggest one that's had the most impact on your success?
Okay, repeat that for me again.
Okay. Let's distill it down. What belief have you had to install in your mind to be able to succeed in business that wasn't there before?
Oh, yeah, that I am security, that I am safety, that I create that from within me, and then my external reality reflects what I've created internally.
Yeah, and I thought you were going to say that after you'd said it about Amanda Francis, but it's so true, and that's a huge one, because when you stop looking externally for that safety, then everything changes.
Yeah. I wish I could make it easy for people to make the flip in their brain too, but it's not easy. It's hard. It's something you have to decide. Okay, well, I've decided that I'm safety. I've decided that I'm security. So now how do I do that? And then that's all of the tools, that's the EFT, that's meditation, that's journaling, scripting, deciding who you're going to be. It all comes from that shift to internal, that shift to looking inside of yourself, seeing what you have, what's available to you from within you, and then trusting that. That's my word for the year this year, is trust. I am trusting myself. I am trusting the universe. I am trusting my businesses. I am trusting my people. I am trusting everything is working for me in the best way for my highest good. Beautiful. I'm going to pop everything in the show notes so people can come and connect with you. Tia, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to finally meet you. It was a pleasure to finally meet you as well. And I will continue being probably one of your biggest fans. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ambitious Introvert podcast with me, Emma-Louise Parks. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes. As a thank you, one lucky reviewer each month will win a 60-minute one-on-one coaching session with me, where you'll get the clarity and confidence to attract your ideal clients. And if you know someone who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share and help me reach as many fellow ambitious introverts as possible.